My best friend dropped the bombshell that she's getting married, one day before my wedding, so I'm considering uninviting her from mine for being so selfish, but I don't want to be a bridezilla. So, I'm getting married in a few weeks. About a month ago, one of my best friends, whom I've known since college and have kept in regular contact with, dropped the bomb that she was getting married. I didn't even know she was seeing anyone. She then dropped the bomb that she's marrying a guy in our friend group and that her wedding is going to have to be the day before mine because her father-in-law can't get time off work at any other time that month. She essentially gave a few other half-assed reasons about why other weekends weren't possible. One weekend will be a few days before her period starts, so she'll be bloated. The other, she's on her period. The other is Valentine's weekend, and that's cringy. The other is too close to Ramadan, so she can't go on her honeymoon straight away. Some backstory about the person she is marrying. He is someone we always thought she had a thing for, but she'd always deny it and say she saw him like a brother. We used to argue a bit over her prioritizing him over me back in college, especially because this guy and I didn't really get along much, and she and I were so close. For example, she and I had brunch plans once, and she spent the whole time texting him. After graduating, though, I feel like we all matured and put our differences behind us to the point where her husband-to-be was actually invited to my wedding as my friend. My knee-jerk reaction to her telling me she was engaged was crying tears of joy for her. I truly was happy for her. But when I went home to think about it, I felt really icky. All year, since I've been wedding planning, she's been asking me really specific questions about my planning process. She complained to me that, as my best friend, she didn't feel involved enough in my planning process and said she wanted to come dress shopping with me, which I invited her to because of her expressing this. But then, for her to turn around and tell me that she's been dating this guy on and off for a year while also keeping it secret makes her feeling left out of my stuff come across as so hypocritical. And then there's the question of why the rush, since she's known him for a decade, and why specifically my wedding weekend when I sent out my save the dates back in March, so she's had so much time to plan and leave some time in between. It's not about me not having all the attention on me, it's just, how can she expect me to be fully present at her wedding, and how selfish she must be to expect me to have to fit her into an already stressful weekend for me. When I told her this, she doubled down on that weekend being the only one available and that she specifically chose that one because she knew I'd be available since I booked a few days off from work before the wedding and that she needed me at her wedding. She said I would embarrass her around her future in-laws since she made such a point of needing to pick a date that I could attend, even though I had no clue she was seeing him, nor did she check if the day was a good fit for me. I then also expressed how upset I was that she kept the relationship hidden from me, to which she said she thought I'd cut her off because of my history of not getting along with this guy. Again, we all moved past that stuff years ago and are a far cry from the kids we were when we all met back in freshman year. When I told her I didn't think I could make it to her wedding, she was so upset she cried and said she never thought I'd do that to her and skip her wedding. She's been telling other friends in the friend group that I'm coming to the wedding when they've asked if that date is doable for me. We haven't spoken since my conversation about how upset with her I was a month ago. I'm not trying to be a bridezilla, and I know people are entitled to be private. My issue is that she should have extended that privacy with me and not asked so many questions about my life, knowing she was being so tight-lipped with hers. This is where I now need advice. I feel so bitter and like the whole friendship was a lie. I can't make it to her wedding, and honestly, having her at mine feels disingenuous. She has been telling friends she is still coming to mine. Is it rude for me not to go to her wedding? Should I go to her wedding since this is a decade-long friendship? Part of me wants to disinvite her and her husband-to-be from my wedding because of the lies. Is that rude? Is there a polite way to disinvite someone from your wedding without coming across like an absolute villain? Thank you for reading up to here if you have. Edit, I'm Middle Eastern, so traditionally, we don't have bridesmaids or a rehearsal dinner. Also, I fixed some wording and added some more detail. Comments. Comment 1. When did this friend send out wedding invitations that you just found out and she's expecting you to attend? Sounds very last minute on her part. Response. So, from what I've heard from the grapevine, she's only just found a venue and no invitations have gone out yet. She's been insisting that officially, the engagement and knowing they were getting married in November is why nothing had been booked. It all just seems so wishy-washy to me. Comment 2. I just have to add a totally instant gut reaction to this situation. Your friend was siphoning off all of your wedding planning to make hers easier. She deliberately planned the day before yours to cover that fact up. Hers is the earlier wedding, therefore, you copied her, in her mind anyway. I am very sorry you are going through this, but this is not a friend. Grieve the loss of what you thought you had and move on with your life. No way should you bother to attend her wedding. She knows it isn't possible for you to go the day before your own wedding, she planned that. But I would formally revoke her invitation to your wedding. Best of luck to you. Hugs from an internet nana. Response, that's what I'm thinking too. Before all of this, she She kept on saying how easy wedding planning seemed to be going for me. It's not been easy at all. I'm just good at hiding it and am very organized, and how I thought of things she would have never even known were a thing. In terms of disinviting and the cultural impact, it's very split down the middle with opinions. So, I'm really torn. Thank you for the hugs, I really appreciate it. This has really helped me feel like I'm not being unreasonable or a bridezilla. Comment 3, quite simply, she is a terrible friend. Here's the gist of what you wrote. You guys are allegedly close, yet she didn't tell you about her year-long relationship. She's chosen to inconvenience you in your own wedding weekend, assumed you'd be available the day before your own wedding, after she hid her relationship from you. She's lying to everyone about you attending her wedding. She hasn't shared any details about her own wedding despite making you feel guilty about not including her in your own wedding planning. You never even really liked her husband. If she thought you'd cut her off for dating this man, why would she think you'd be okay not cutting her off for marrying him? She seems the kind of friend who wants to know all of your business without sharing anything from her own life. Honestly, not the kind of company you'd want to keep. Response, heavy on the last point. I have so many friends who are private people and don't speak on many things until they're set in stone, but at the same time, they follow a don't ask, don't tell policy, so it doesn't bother me at all. And I completely agree about the worry of me cutting her off. I said this to her, and she really didn't have anything to say in response. I was over all of that stuff anyway. I invited him to the wedding because I'd gotten over my dislike of him these last few years, but apparently, she has selective memory and only wants to believe the things that suit her narrative. Update 1. Trust me, guys, there are so many holes in her story that I'm curious about too, and a lot else that I didn't include in my original post. In terms of how busy I'll be putting together my wedding favors with the girls in the family in the days leading up to the wedding. I'll also be doing airport runs up to the day before, as a lot of family will be traveling in, some from 20+ hours away, and we live close to 3 major airports, so it's all hands on deck. And then, honestly, I was hoping I'd get a nice early night in to relax for once because I've had such a busy year. I'll be combining my henna event with a reception on the day of the wedding because I've already had 2 events and have a Western-style bridal shower the weekend before, so I wanted to cut down on events. Update 2. A few people in the original post were asking about rehearsal dinners and all of that stuff. I'm Middle Eastern, and we don't really do that in our culture. Some people also said I needed to get over myself and that I don't own the whole weekend, which is true, I don't. My issue was the lying and also the expectation of me to drive a total of 5 hours, 2.5 hours there and back, the day before my wedding and to attend another wedding when I had so many things to finalize. I also just needed to vent. Being lied to and having something that felt so calculated happen in what I thought was one of my closest friendships is strange. Oh, and I don't think it was a shotgun wedding, which a lot of people were suggesting. Anyway, I had my wedding, and it was perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. I didn't go to her wedding. I genuinely didn't have the time. I did see some posted videos of her wedding, and she didn't copy mine, which a lot of people were worried about, considering she had been asking me about all of my prep. I'll give her flowers, though. Her wedding was gorgeous, but definitely not a 2-month planned wedding like she was making it out to be to me. In the end, she ended up coming to my wedding about 3 hours late. I was too busy being in my own newly married bubble to notice her or anything, but I did get feedback from people who were seated at her table. Like people said she would in my original post, she spent the whole time talking about her wedding. In our culture, the bride receives a heavy piece of gold jewelry at her wedding. She made a show of having her new husband take her piece of jewelry out of her bag and put it on her at the table just after my husband and I, feels so nice saying that, did our outfit change. She was also showing off other pieces of jewelry she received, making a point to emphasize that she received real sapphires and real diamonds. She and her husband also spent the whole time texting each other, which means they were probably saying not very nice things that they didn't want our mutual friends overhearing, and she frequently turned to him and said, "Don't worry, we're leaving soon." They were also packing on the PDA with neck kisses. She then cried to my mom and brother about how she doesn't understand why I've not been talking to her and how I've been so cold to her. This wasn't true. I'd only told her how much her actions and lies had hurt me, and to be honest, she was the one who didn't respond to my last message. My mum, being the classic mum she is, brought her to me and tried to make us hug it out. We had this very awkward exchange caught on camera. My mum did tell my friend that she shouldn't have lied to me for a whole year, though, so it's nice to know she had my back, even if she pulled a typical mum move trying to make everyone happy. Our mutual friends are all on my side. No one really thinks she's in the right. Most of them didn't go to her wedding. With the invites being so last minute and her wedding being on a weekday, a lot of people couldn't get the time off or childcare. No one else knew about the wedding, which is crazy. I do believe that her truth is that she doesn't think she's done anything wrong, and she really does think that she considered me in my situation in her wedding planning. Unfortunately, I think it's one of those friendships where we no longer really align, and I have taken a step back and distanced myself from her. I do appreciate that she came to my wedding, however, I think she did it to make a point more than out of the goodness of her heart and respect for our friendship, considering what she pulled.